So we're working on the first scene, and I never really thought about how you would go do this, because the last time a bunch of friends and I tried to shoot some videos, we just went, no planning, and I thought that might have been more spontaneous. Um, it was a disaster. It's such a failure. Like, I think, like, they're not bad people, but, like, I don't think their hearts were in it, and it was quite frustrating for me because I really want to do it. And so this time I'm going to do it right. So yeah, we're going to record this process, and I spent this morning, I don't know why I'm watching you in my sunshine, but we have some Habermas, like, lectures. Oh my god, it's so cringe, but yeah, I spent this morning typing this up. So I typed out the, I guess, not the manifesto. Like, I kind of just went off. Like, I didn't follow my script at all. Just freestyle, wrote a bunch of stuff. But the point is that I'm going to go do this whole loop. At least that's the goal for now. And this loop has a lot of countries that you can't go to yet. So we're just going to do America. But the problem with America is that I need to start in Alaska. You can't drive to Alaska right now because the border's closed. So long story short, I spent the whole morning writing this article. I'm pretty happy with it. I think it sets the tone for myself. I can't really say this thing fully represents me right now. Why? Because I'm still experimenting with the voice. It sounds very cucky and self-conscious, like overly so. But I think that's important. Like, my goal is not to just pile something on top of YouTube. Like, I want to just have it there. Like, I don't, like, I think if it resonates with the masses, like, I'm very happy about that. But alright. But what I really want to do, okay, is I want to put something out there, like evergreening, that I can use to show people. It's like, all right, well, if you want to know who I am, like, check this out. Like, this is stuff that I'm happy to put out there as my story, and I think that will be like an evergreening content. So in any case, I want to make something that, it's like evergreening content I can put out there. It's not too cringy, because I think that my beliefs in politics would change, but in the end of the day, this is going to be a candid effort for me to A, capture my inner world, and B, sort of try to ground myself in terms of my public identity, because I think I'm at a point where I think I need to pick and choose, even though I can't vote yet, but I want to pick and choose a side. So that's that's a thing. Like, most people don't even think this is a problem, but like, if you want to go out there and live in this world, like, I think this is very important. If you're not just like getting by on a day-to-day basis and just going to work, and then you just pick up whatever flavor of the newspaper, which for most people is New York Times, and then you get that official sort of like party line view, and then you can go go on your day and not worry about what's going on. But I feel like for me to actually transcend, it sounds so snobby, but like, for me to transcend aesthetically, like, I want to have some sort of solid ground. So this is my attempt at finding solid ground. So I didn't know whether I want to, how do I put it? Like, do I want to just start from like blank and start typing? Like, is this type of content any use to anyone? I think people might like it if they start finding the content interesting, and then they want to see how the sausage is made. But I don't think I have that like aura right now. It's something I can work towards. It's not really important for me, but I think that more I document, it's just more, it benefits my creative process, because I really believe in the power of freezing time now, like some type of like substance, like freezing memory, grounding memory, because so much of how our memory operates, it's so unstable. But at least having some kind of documentation of that, I really value it. You know, this comes from the fact that I lost a bunch of cell phones and I feel really sad. So I need to do this episode, but you know, so I categorize this into a bunch of categories. So the big picture is the macro layer, which traces, you know, my journey in China, which lasted, you know, like the first, I guess, I should know this by heart, but 11 years of my life. We're going from the west, making our way inland, and then eventually jump to there we go. Nope. Here. Then we jump to Alaska, you know, so from here to here, and basically, long story short, Alaska to New England for school, came back to work for a little bit, but some shit had happened, so I went to Europe. After Europe, came back to this region, worked a little bit, then started bouncing around the world, bounced around the world more, but recently lived in Austin, and then since beginning this year, started bouncing around in Eastern California. Not sure if this is Eastern, but Southern California, and then after COVID, Phoenix. That's the progression. This is gonna be episode 0. How I explained the project. So that was kind of what the article was gonna be for, but then I just went off on a tangent for my artistic flourishes, I guess. So anyway, episode 0. We're just gonna go over this map. So there's the macro part, but all during this, you know, I was taking trips here and there. So stuff about macro is that I probably spent at least like, you know, I try to keep it at least 6 months, but stuff more recently, I've cut it down to like 3 months because I usually stay in a place for like a couple weeks. Nonetheless, you know, I took a trip during college. Actually, 2 trips because Google Maps doesn't allow a lot of layers, so I combined them. One was in China in summer of my freshman year. And then this is during my exchange in France in 2012. So I don't know if I want to do that trip. I haven't really thought of it. You know, that was kind of like just going with the horde and not really significant besides like 1 or 2 events where romantically, I guess, kind of cringy. I don't think I want to bring this person into all this, you know, like I haven't really thought about including other people. I think like the beginning content is very neutral, just me. But I have to deal with like bringing other people in here, and I feel like my most recent ex that's gonna be challenging. I think the wound is so fresh, and we've been together the longest time. Whatever. Then after my life-changing event of almost getting deported because my immigration fell through, I took a wandering trip, couch surfing through the Midwest. But then once I got to like St. Louis, I'm just like, whoa, there's too much land in the middle. I can't handle this. So I stopped. That's not a very significant trip. Maybe I can delete this layer and save a layer. But this trip is more significant. So maybe I'll just talk about this in the first or 0th video. This is the real trip I took after I went home to Anchorage while having no definite resolution of what my immigration situation is going to be. So after being locked up for a couple months, I just decided like screw it, I'm going to fly to Seattle. I've never been to these places. And then I just couch surfed and hosteled my way. Like I was surprised there's hostels in the US. That's another separate story. Went all the way down. I think they call it, the Amtrak people call it the Coastal Starlight. That's basically the track from Seattle, I think, all the way down to San Diego. So I did this trip. That was pretty interesting, and we might hit up like our friend in San Diego. He's actually a photographer now, so I think that might be pretty interesting. But we took an impromptu trip to Vegas. That was funny. Okay. Oh, okay. This keeps going. how do I do this? Oh yeah, this is the big trip. Fuck. So dumb. Yeah, this is the first real solo backpacking trip I did, and it was all in Southeast Asia. This was a blast. Like this was when I was still like innocent and full of hope. So yeah, basically all the typical backpacking route for Westerners. Yeah, a lot to say about this, but I wouldn't say this is the formative trip. So anyway, there's a whole bunch of more trips, and like when I travel, I go for like extended travel, like months at a time. So I eventually want to cover all of them. I think what what I'm also gonna do is that if I'm just like trapped in one place, I might just do like a sort of a collage pastiche of this like place I've been to. I really want to experiment with that format. I think it's kind of interesting because, we're at a stage where most reality, at least, not like all the variation of lighting and stuff, like, what I'm saying is that most of like locations reality, like there has been some kind of recorded media on it. So it might be interesting to just use that to piece together a collage and do commentary, because that alone I think would help me tremendously. But whether this content is interesting for other people, well, that's for other people to decide. Like I think end of the day, like I'm just doing this for myself. So the way I'm talking, like I'm not talking to anyone specific. That is something I need to explore, but I don't intend to pander. Like I'm not constrained by the need to monetize to survive. Like I don't need that. So I don't want to pander. Like the goal end of the day is to elevate this genre. Like I think this genre has so much potential, and I've seen maybe like a few YouTubers, sort of capitalize on that. But the thing is that it's always a route of shock, or like like very outlandish absurdity. Like I'm pretty shameless now. Like there's nothing that can embarrass me in my private life, but it's just like I need to orchestrate in how I build a spider web in terms of how much of aspects or facades of my personal experience that I reveal, because if I do it in the wrong order, I feel like something might happen. Nothing dangerous, but like it does not come out correctly. Like I still want to go for the more populist route in the beginning, in terms of like building up some kind of following, and then once that happens, then I'll throw in more like next level stuff, and people can self-select. If you don't like it, if you find my view a little bit too condescending, or you can't relate to it, you can unfollow. Like I want to do the sifting a little bit later. But with that being said, I still want to present a work that really has integrity. Like I've tried to do like YouTube. I guess I cannot give it double YouTube, but just singular YouTube. I've tried to do that, and I've done a couple things that I think I followed the algorithm, but it was just like, I don't want to make this commodity, because it takes me so much effort. If I'm making a commodity, I'm just trying to monetize from this, right? Like then it's like, okay, like I'm not really taking full advantage of like the opportunity cost I'm spending to make YouTube videos, and editing, voicing, and finding like content on it, like myself. Like I can outsource that and do it better. Then it becomes more commercialized, right? So like if I do this, I see this as something that is truly a labor of love. It's something that I want to have out there that represents me. And I think that the validation marker is not like a lot of views. It's, the quality views. It's people that really want to follow this process. And I think that, I don't think I'll start selling supplements or selling self-help methods. I really want to normalize my life in terms of like media exposure, because my own political standing, it is not normalized. Like there's nobody that speaks for legal immigrants. Very few. And how it's being discussed these days is completely off track in terms of actually, if you truly go with like the original liberal spirit of, fighting for the living condition of the underprivileged, then no, there's no one on the left that does that today. Like, I think that because we were in such a, to borrow a very charged term, but like in such a obscure intersectional niche that no one was looking out for us. And in fact, that we're legally, by definition, disenfranchised. So you're kind of stuck in the middle because, you know, there's definitely, in terms of just sheer absolute size, more illegal immigrants performing unskilled labor. You know, like that's a necessary aspect of American society. I understand that. So that is more pertinent in terms of a political chip wager for you to throw on the table, whereas our situation is not, and especially when you are in middle of nowhere in Alaska, where there's only like literally a handful of like Chinese people. No, it's not. It's a very, very much like marginalized. Not the word. Like I would say like unconnected. Like in terms of a social graph, it's not connected to anything. So I think that's the white space I'm operating in. Like that's the white space I'm carving out because no one has done that. And I think my connection back to the real world is that, you know, like I've sort of just lived through as like one of those other hyper educated like leftist. Even though I never signaled being left, but I think that if you're a minority, you know, like unless you kind of announce that, you know, you're the equivalent of, you know, whatever flavor you are, but like you're the equivalent of a black Republican, then no one sees that as your identity. I think like, you know, people's sort of intuitive judgment about your political leaning is just gonna be like, you're like that, you know. And I would say that true, I buy into some of the liberal stuff, but I think that having been, you know, I'll introduce a new term here, a third culture person or third culture kid, TCP, I'll meme TCP into happening, but like being TCP, I don't have the obligation to choose. Like if I had the ability to vote, you know, like that would exert some kind of invisible pressure on me to actually exercise that right. Because I think it's like the fabric of the society, right? If you don't practice it, then it's just like, okay, like you have no civic empathy. Like why are you here? You know, but it doesn't matter for most people, so it doesn't matter. But like, you know, I'm not obligated to choose. And I think that once I am obligated to choose, which means after I naturalize, then I would actually, you know, like really work on it and pick a side. But I don't. So I stand in this middle. You know, it's not like the enlightened centrist meme because I don't really buy into that. Like I have kind of a stake in where this country is going, but like, you know, in the day that, you know, like the political process for most people, like you're not directly involved in all of that at all. Like there's really nothing you can change. But I think that as an exercise, like an exercise that democracy, that's really important for you just being like a responsible human being. I don't think this is gonna turn out ultimately how I would like this to turn out, but I do want to document the creative process because this is indeed the first time that I've gone back to reminisce about these days in a systematic way. And what you see here in this note is what I typed up in like 10-15 minutes, and I have not finished the scenes yet, but let me just go through this. So yeah, so basically I acknowledge that the first episode needs to be Fairbanks. The meta episode come first. I think this is the meta episode, and I was thinking about the conventions and how we label that. You know, we're trying to go for a different style. We're trying to go for a different like visual / linguistic vocabulary. So we might do like, you know, this episode as we're talking, like this might be 1 prime or 1 prime. I don't know, 1.1 dash something. Like, you know, we'll borrow some. Yeah, I like. I'm thinking of some of the lithography type of stuff. You know, how they number the series, like what print it is. Like that could be interesting. But this is not really the key. I think we need to have these like little small things peppered in there, So people find, people self-select. This is the type of stuff that, you pay good money to get a liberal arts education. And so people self-select. Like, oh my God, what did this guy call it? Like the tweed thing. Anyway, but I struggled with what should I limit in the first episode, and that naturally sort of raised the question, like, how long does this need to be? And I don't really care for mass appeal. Like, I really want this thing to sort of, like, trickle out there, and then, like, people who are super bored, like 2 or 3 in the morning, let's say like a handful of people, and then one guy actually stuck through with this, and he's like, whoa, this is something. There's a narrative here. There's like something deeper than I expect. Thank you, YouTube algorithm. Like, I want that to happen. Like, I'm looking for the singular individual. Like, this has been my experience on Twitter, because I tweet a lot. I have a lot of private Twitter accounts. So you find that when you sort of bootstrapping these accounts in the beginning, like, you rely on like someone who really buys into your whole spiel. And that's what I want. Like, that's more generic. Like, I don't know. I might do some SEO, like, to a reasonable extent. Like, I'll probably use tags or keywords. But, like, I'll probably draw the line at artificially manipulating the metrics. Like, I think I'll draw the line there. But who knows? Like, this is so in the beginning. Like, I have not tried this. But I really want this to feel right. And so if my intuition is telling me otherwise, then I know it's something I don't want to do. And I feel like at this stage, like, I don't want to, like, blatantly pander and promote it. Like, this is the approach I'm taking with the blog. Like, I'm not linking to anything. Like, there's no backlinks. There's no, like, reference. Like, no one's shouting it out. I'm not posting on social media. Like, I will have the blog's URL in description of these videos, but these videos are not connected to anything. Like, I don't want to promote this in my social circle. Like, I don't want to rely on that. I want it to grow organically wherever the internet gods out there think that it's appropriate. Like, I want to grow organically, and if it trickle back to my social group, like, great. But I'm not going to rely on that, because yeah, one day I'll go off on a tangent of why I stopped posting Instagram stories, because, like, I've chosen a very different lifestyle. So I don't want to be out there, like, in people's faces, but I really want to do this. Like, I think people need to see this. It's not like, like, everyone in America needs to see this, but I think that I'm trying to make sense of this whole experience. But I think that as a part of the American tapestry, it's not really being, fairly represented. Like, this is kind of debate between, like, House of Representative versus Senate, right? And so, applying this analogy back to what I'm trying to do, well, it's the same thing. Like, I want this thing that does not have mass appeal to have appeal. Like, that would actually gratify me so much. So, long story short, we come back to so episode 1. I think that the key is gonna be the first impression. So, like, I started typing the scenes at first, right? Like, that's gonna be the first scene's gonna be being woken up entering the city, because that's really my sort of keystone memory about moving to America. Like, I knew we drove past Denali and all that, like, someone woke me up, but I didn't even bother like coming down. But I do remember, like, that was such a liberating moment for my parents. Like, as we'll see when we drive back there, there's something just about the landscape. Like, the landscape, it has its own, like, magic quality attached to it. But I remember there was a scene, but I cannot contextualize all this in, like, a first episode. So as a choice, I've decided to really start off, being woken up and entering the city, like the very typical sort of American road trip. Then you have your head leaning on, like, the glass, looking out, open your eyes. I don't think that ever happens. Who knows? But I think it happened to me. So when I thought about it, yeah, when it was exercise, like, which way do we come in? And it was kind of an issue, because so my anchor for all of this is this. It's a subway. I think it's still there. So, okay, it's this subway. It's this subway on Airport Way. Like, oh my God. I can't believe this whole postmodern thing. Like you can go anywhere. You can just go look at anywhere. Look, boop. You know, I might as well just use this to create some kind of content instead of like actually going there. But wow, like it's just hitting me so hard in the feels. But I know this is still on what do you call it? Geist Road, I think. No. Oh fuck, what is this road called? Okay, it's right here. It's right here. We have to go on Airport Road. I remember that. See? Quiznos? Subway. 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 Come on. Subway. Boom. Right here. I have a distinct impression of remembering this subway because I don't know. Like I probably saw something else, but I saw Subway and it was like one of the few English words I knew, and somehow I never noticed it, but Subway has dual color in its logo. If I saw Subway, then I was just like, whoa, Subway. I thought this town was tiny, but it has like an underground like transportation system. That was really my first thought. I remember this a lot because I've used this example to talk about certain linguistics things, and this is one of the first associations I truly have of America, is my misunderstanding of Subway being like a chain that's eaten by Jared versus like actually I we never stopped here until much later, but every time I went past this, at least for like the first year or so when I was in Fairbanks / in America, I never landed here. I always want to go check out if there's like a Subway entrance somewhere, but obviously no. So I do remember this, and you know, you see how much additional detail I can apply onto this, that it makes me feel that like I need to start off with this. And so what I really want for this was that this made me think of like, I don't know if I can find it, but lost in translation, like cab scene. You know, oh wow, they have this. So I don't know if this is gonna flag the YouTube algo. Okay, this is the second car scene. This is the second scene. But yeah, this is first time in Tokyo. There we go. Like something like this, you know. Like I don't have the production. I don't have the production of this, and I don't have someone else shooting me. You know, like this shot is so great. Apparently this shot is very innovative. Like when I watched this movie, I learned that this is one of the first times someone stuck a camera outside, but who knows. But I really want this feeling. Like I think the mainstream interpretation of Lost in Translation is that like Bill Murray is going to heaven, so this is like a heavenly thing. But as I was typing this, I realized like no fucking way Fairbanks can be presented as heaven. And it's like the opposite of Tokyo. Like there's no neon lights or anything. So I couldn't do that. So something like this, I don't know. Like maybe I can hum like I don't know, but that would be cool because it's so iconic, right? Like this is gonna set the scene for everything, and I do think piggybacking off what Lost in Translation was trying to do in terms of, you know, like scene setting, like that could be really interesting. So yeah, that's that, and yeah, shoegazy sound. But then, you know, like, then my next experience is that this is the first place we lived in Fairbanks. It just happened to be, like, right here. Like, you know, I can literally click on this map. Like, you go past the Safeway, Fred Meyer's. It's right here. Oh, there's Carl's. Oh, that's new. There's no Carl's Jr.'s back then. There's definitely no. That's a new thing. It has to be a new thing. Wait, did they... Wait, did my memory degrade? I think it's back here, right? Wait, what? Hold on, I'm not tripping. Oh, okay. It's little bit far off. I don't like. Oh, there we go. I still remember this sign. Like I just love this aesthetics. It's such a crazy aesthetics. Sweet Hotel. Yeah. Oh, okay, I remember this. Okay, this is kind of okay. Yeah, we actually lived in this building then. Yeah, I do remember this pretty well. And you have to realize how mind-blowing this layout is for me, as someone who grew up in like sort of middle classy China, is it's just so spread out, and the scale of the building and how long it is, and then when you go in, like how the stairs are structured, like it just felt so America. It's like a, I don't know. I'm sure like Europeans or Scandinavians will have this type of construction, but like it was just so impressionable for me because this was fundamentally the other, and I was experiencing the other, and so everything took a long time to process. But I really want to go into these buildings because if I don't, maybe I'll just rent one for a day because it is a hotel. Interesting. I might just do that because these are suites. Yeah, interesting. Okay, yeah, I might do that. But anyway, so the key in that is I do remember things associated with this location. We didn't stay here for long. We stayed here for maybe like a couple weeks. But first day when we landed in America, when we first lived in here, my dad insisted that uh we watch the pirated like video of Friends. He downloaded the entire series of Friends back then. Up until, yeah, no, it was still going. So up until like 2003, we watched the first episode. That was pretty impressionable. I'll talk about that a little later. And then I actually do remember like maladjusting because of the time difference, time zone differences, and also like I think that's when I first had this like existentially moment, even though I couldn't verbalize it as such at the moment. But it was just like, I do feel a sense of difference because I don't think I ever processed like moving to America. Like I need to think about this more because I still haven't really processed it, and I can verbalize how I felt about it, like in like a teenage view because I think that's the view I stuck with. I haven't really reprocessed it. But long story short, I didn't really process it. I still haven't processed it. And it just felt so different. Like you're stepping away from your constructed reality, away from the linguistic semiotics you've structured, and you're stepping out. And this was it. This was the first thing, like even this is so jarringly different from like postcard America with the National Forest, with like New York City. This is different. This is so different. Like this layout in terms of how the roads are curvy, how there's parking lots, how the buildings are stubby, how it's like like duplex or like multiplex. Like that's not a thing in China. Like it's either single family farmhouse, which is very rare for urbanites, but it's very common if you're agrarian or from the countryside. And then, for most urbanites, it's just like apartment blocks, buildings. Nobody lived in like this sort of singular-ish units. So that was it. But like the existential moment is that I remember very clearly. I was trying to fall asleep, couldn't, and it was almost midnight. And I remember I never go past like 10 or 11 at that age. And I was just like, something's up, like I can't sleep. And at one moment, I resorted to like counting to 10 because I was thinking about my friends back then, but obviously probably never see them again. So then I thought about like, okay, I don't know how to make this pass, but I sort of ascribe myself with the power of like, oh, I can end the world with my thought. So I counted down to 10. I do remember that. I'll say a lot more about that in the video, but that was a very impressionable moment. And so I think this will take some time. I think this as a basis to discuss like the framing or at least like the beginning of like actually staying put in one place for a little bit in America and try to process it. Like this place actually gave me so much, not inspiration, but just like material. And like we did a lot here. Like we had no idea what to do. Like it was a huge change for all of us. Like it was also my mom's first time in America. And I didn't mention that my dad came a year early, and then it was my mom. And I remember like she was trying to learn how to drive, but then they fucked up the car on this like curb. It's kind of interesting, but whatever. So that was that, and so I think that would take up a lot of the first episode. But then I kind of want to talk about like American grocery stores because that is just such a big deal. Like, wow, they still use like the same pictures for before, which is fun. Um, I think they changed the font of this, but I remember like this grocery store. The weird thing is that we had supermarkets in China, but never in this kind of like sort of deconstructed, like, open pipes sort of warehousey type of thing. Like I never seen this, but this sort of aesthetics, that's new. Like, you definitely take this for granted in America these days, but this was my grocery store. Like this was the grocery store. This formed a lot of my first impressions. Like how you have like organic versus non-organic, like that differentiation. Okay, it's very politically charged, but whatever. And also like how I love how there's pictures to explain everything. Like I love how this is a supermarket. Like we had what's called supermarkets in China, but it didn't go this deep. It didn't go into consumer goods like this. But like this is a market that has pretty much everything you need when you need to live, in like a normal sense. You're not going for like premium brand recognition. What the hell is this? Oh, this is the second floor of the new cafeteria. I think this was relatively new. They didn't add that little alcove until much later. And also like open salad bars. Oh my god. The stuff that, you find me being impressed about. Yeah. So that's what I want to do. Themes I want to stress in here, definitely food, non-food, the scale. We might be able to do another episode, but then I want to wrap it up. We might be able to wrap it up with all of this because I'm shooting for like 20 minutes and there's so much to talk about. But I really do want to focus on like this bilingual education thing. Like that's a huge aspect. And I don't know if I can find my ESL teacher. I don't even remember her name. I do want to talk about the beginning of education because that, to me, like, I think intellectual formation is so much more important. Yeah, I'll save the education stuff for a little later. But I'm pretty happy what I've been able to get down for this because I do want to give all these seemingly mundane thing a fair treatment because this type of stuff is so overlooked, Like, I think people don't have the real appreciation for Americana because I think for people that are born here, they're stuck in this mode. But for me, always, like, Americana is the other. People these days have this very neoliberal view of, like, China is oppressive, etc. Then, for me, as someone came out of that, like, I owe a lot of my appreciation to this type of places and content. Whatever, like the presentation, the idea. Like I didn't take this for granted, so like I had to start interpreting, people might call it deconstructing, but like I was not taking any type of whole and breaking it down. I was building it in a fully like inductive way from like the ground up. So that's why all this stuff has a different significance for me. So I really want to talk about that. I really want to lay down that framework. So at the risk of not running like way too over time for the first episode, I'll probably just stick with like this immediate vicinity. Like, oh my god, this little loop. No one really thought about like significance, but that's this little golden triangle is sort of where my American sensibility started. It's so, how do I put this? I mean, like, there's so much that needs to be done about the university, this road, the garbage dump, the park, Pioneer Park for sure. I used to play tennis down here. Had to fucking bike all the way out there every day. That was a pain in the ass. Didn't really go, we can go outside of Fairbanks. Never really went this way, but yeah, North Pole. Didn't really go there much, but definitely like out here, Esther area. This is kind of like where a lot of our like classmates lived. Goldstream Valley, Fox, all of that. So I'll have plenty to talk about, but we're gonna limit ourselves just to this area. In fact, that like all the education happened downtown. This is not the downtown actually. This is kind of like I don't know, like outpost before you go on the highway. So yeah, more or less, this is kind of like an off-highway sort of place. Downtown is actually in the middle, and there's a whole bunch of things to say about that. You know, like school district, plus the music place. There's a Chinese food market, not Chinese food store. There's a market. There's probably a buffet. Can't think of now. Ooh, I have a Costco now. Damn. Rip Sam's Club. Is Sam's Club dead? I think Sam's Club's dead. This has to be dead, right? There's got to be no more Sam's Club. Anyway, so much to say. So, yeah, I'll try to edit this. See if we can mine some golden nuggets out of this being a meta episode. All right.